Hello and welcome everyone to the Cluster Puck Podcast, part of the MHRT Network here at Center Ice. I am Nick. Beside me here, as always, is Brit. How are you, Brit?
I am good. For some reason, that intro really startled Captain. He's not very happy about all the ruckus.
Well, not to worry, Captain. We got we skipped last week, obviously, with 4th of July. Didn't want to get in the way of you friends and families, fireworks and all that. And a lot happened. So let's kind of get into all that. But before we begin, don't forget everyone to like and subscribe, follow the MHRT Network so you can get notified when shows like the Cluster Puck Podcast go live. You can follow them on the various social media platforms of your liking. If you want to follow us, you can follow us at the Cluster Puck Podcast on Facebook and at Cluster Puck Avs on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. Okay, Britt, I had to write this down because there was a lot. There was a lot.
Yeah,
that happened.
It's hard to even remember like where we cut off. So we missed all of draft day.
So draft, right? Our last episode that we did was as far as what was discussed last episode. I know you weren't there last episode, so I wanted to get some opinions from you because I know there were some people that were asking, hey, I want to hear what Britt has to say from this. So your thoughts first on Andrew Cogliano calls it quits and joins the Avs front office. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's awesome because I even said before, even though at times he may have really not been the player that we've known on the ice, and we probably pushed it a year longer than we should have, particularly when you consider his role in special teams. He played a lot of very important roles, and we saw him just short of a detriment to special teams and just regular gameplay at times. But it's someone that we held on to longer than we probably should have, just because of what he brings in the locker room and on the bench. I think I mentioned it in the last podcast that he's somebody that he got the Stanley Cup immediately after Gabe, didn't he? I mean, that is, if there's any way to establish a pecking order, just look at how guys pass off the Stanley Cup and who it goes to, and there's usually one shocker. And Cogliano had played for the Avs for shortly after the playoffs. I mean, he had only been with us for such a short time. We didn't even know him. McKinnon had a big part in bringing him in. McKinnon knew what he had in him, and he played a huge role in his short time here. And from everything that I've read in every locker room he's ever played in, he has been an integral part of their leadership. And bringing him on as, I believe he's technically going to be in player development. So I don't know what the exact role is, but honestly, as a team who struggles to develop players and tends to have people leave, not necessarily under bad terms, but maybe having felt like they didn't get a good shot. Guys like Ben Myers, we recently saw leave, Ben Myers was the golden egg of the college free agents when we acquired him. And we just saw him kind of fizzle out. I truly think that the only way that we could have seen Cogliano be more valuable than he was on the ice during their Stanley Cup run is to have him molding and shaping and establishing relationships with the guys that we're trying to convince to stay. And maybe he'll do not only a better job developing them, but maybe communicated what is needed from them in order to make them one of Bednar's guys. Because my dog it's just he also has some feelings about Cogliano. But I really think that he might be that perfect bridge between players and coaches and coaching staff, all the various coaches. We might see players develop better because they're going to have someone who is stellar in communication and teaching them how to be men.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's hard.
And I think you're right. And I think no better person to teach kind of hardiness than Iron Man himself, right? Like it's just that guy's had so many things run him over and break his neck and break his hands. And
his wife deserved a Stanley Cup ring for
what
she had to deal with.
In fact, she probably took Andrews is what happened. She's like, that's actually mine.
I cannot imagine the sigh of relief that she must have breathed knowing that he's not going to come home with a broken neck. No more.
No kidding. Okay, so next bit of info that we just wanted to get from you real quick was that the Avalanche re-signed Casey Middlestat to a term which all of a sudden I had, and now it's just flew right away. But it was longer. I think it was like 4 years.
Goodness. It's like a 4x5-ish somewhere in there.
I think it was around that area. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on that?
I like it. I think that he's being undervalued by almost everyone other than the Avs staff. And you are also hearing a lot of chatter from the Sabres organization. It was very tough to lose him. Not that it wasn't hard to lose Bo, but Bo was someone that we've just constantly ached for, and Middlestat was essentially supposed to be their saving grace, and all but was. For the small amount of hope that they had did lie with him. And they've accepted Bo and they love him, but Middlestat literally filled the most obvious hole that we've needed to fill since the moment Nazem Kadri went to 3x5-7-5. I like it a lot. And the thing is, 5-7-5 sounds like a lot, but people aren't mentally adjusting to the pay that people are getting. And it's kind of a bridge contract. It's just enough time that we're truly going to give him enough time that if he can solidify himself as a second line center, that's possibly the hardest role, short of goaltender, might be the hardest role to fill in the NHL. Because if you're good enough to be second on any decent team, you're probably good enough to be a first line center on a little bit worse team. So you bounce. That's why Kadri goes. It's a continuously cyclical position because you're always good enough to be someone else's first line center and they'll overpay you, and good teams don't have the money to overpay second line centers. So it is going to be a constantly changing position. So if he can just establish himself, it's going to age beautifully. In 3 years, 5.75, we're going to be paying fourth liners that much. I mean, really, it's changing fast.
Yeah. And I think that's absolutely right. With the potential that Middlestat has.
Yeah.
I think even with a 3-year deal, by year 3, that deal is going, assuming he plays better and better every year, that deal is going to look like to steal the century. Assuming everything that you just said.
If things go according to plan, he may very well outprice himself, but that's kind of the Avs game plan is we take dudes who outprice themselves and then we just start again. So it'd be nice if he could get to that ceiling quickly and we could utilize him for the full 3 years as opposed to having to wait a little bit longer. Like we have on other players that maybe didn't come through in the way that we needed them to, because NHL windows don't last forever, but we do have a longer window than most teams are used to.
This is true. So that being said, as far as roster is concerned, free agency, let's talk about that. That's the big theme for this episode, amongst other things, obviously. But that's the big thing because everything else that I discussed in the last episode, you could basically toss a lot of it out the window because of stuff that happened, which we'll get into also later in the episode. So, free agency. Oh my gosh. First of all,
I don't know.
There were some teams where I'm like, how do you have
happen so fast this year? Or is it just that information is exchanged so quickly? Because it was moving so fast. I honestly was almost overwhelmed, even because I follow other teams as well. I have Elliot Friedman notifications turned on my Twitter, and my phone was literally going nonstop. You snooze, you lose. I mean, I feel like free agency has never moved that quickly, but I don't know if it's just that we've never been able to receive the information so quickly. Because it was insane.
Day one was definitely the big day, right? Like
Yeah.
it was just outrageous how many teams were going after what and which and whatever. And
Crazy.
granted,
It
that's
probably feels different because we weren't really doing anything because we can't.
because we couldn't, and that's exactly what we were going to discuss here in just a second. So the players that have gone elsewhere, some of them we kind of understood and kind of thought that would happen. Jack Johnson is out. He has decided to go and re-sign with a former team of his, the Columbus Blue Jackets. It does suck because he was a great person, great locker room guy. However, understandably so, this wasn't exactly something that was going to hurt the Avalanche just based off of his age, his
on
play.
The ice, he brought down every defensive pair that he was on. And unfortunately, it's hard to say that. I do feel like we didn't get what we should have out of Sean Walker because Sean Walker was stuck with him a lot. I kind of feel like we didn't really get a good look at him. I love him. I was really hoping he would retire and just stay with do a Cogliano type thing. But you also got to remember he's still got to make money. He filed for bankruptcy less than 10. He hasn't made the amount of money that
he has to keep playing. Yeah.
First overall, right? First overall.
Well, was he a first overall?
Something.
He's somewhere up there. I remember that.
But he hasn't made that kind of money. And I honestly, if you're a player that doesn't have the legs to play with the Avs, it doesn't necessarily determine what your role can be in other teams. So I do kind of find some enchantment in the idea that he can go to Columbus, and that association is so messed up and so toxic. I just pray that he can be the man there. You know what I mean? He's got such a wealth of knowledge, and he's so respected everywhere he goes, and he deserves that. It'd be kind of nice to see him go there, and they suck bad enough that he may very well be playing like second line defense, and he can get the attention or just the love that he deserves as a tone setter. And maybe we can credit him someday with fixing the Columbus Blue Jackets because they're just the worst. They ruin everything.
They need the help more than anything. And with their coaching woes, where it sounds like the Todd McClellan talks have kind of dissipated, they're kind of in this world of hurt. Helps, and this veteran presence is probably going to run a long way.
I mean, Patsy, they like ruined him. I just don't. And
I mean, Johnny Gaudreau.
My thing is, if they hire Joe Quenneville, I will lose every ounce of faith. Not that Joe Quenneville is probably one of the best coaches to ever have coached in the NHL, but I really hope they learned a lesson with Babcock and do not try to go down the experimental road because this is which players all hated Babcock, and Quenneville was generally respected up until the Kyle Beachin incident. And even after, it seems as though players did enjoy playing for him, but they need to correct their culture, which sounds I know it sounds woke and blah, 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 but this is so far beyond like a liberal take. They have got to correct their culture before they can even think about playing hockey, because it doesn't matter who's on your team if your culture is it's just so bad. Just
toxic, I think is the word to describe it. But I mean, you're absolutely right. It's going to be a team to look for the purposes of what is development going to look like. You know what I mean? But at the same time, like I said, Jack Johnson, he's familiar with the organization at least, so he does bring some value of sorts to the team.
And he's and I don't care what people say, there's value in players who have won. And you'll find that it's not just the first line guys that have won. It's third and fourth line grinders that have won bring a different kind of knowledge and a swagger that you can't teach it. You can't buy it. Ask the Oilers. Like there's no way to attain it other than to win and to have done it and to work like that and to have been surrounded by dudes that like McKinnon, work ethics that you truly can't grasp until you're with it every day.
Exactly. Another player decided to wish the Avalanche happy trails, and that was Brandon Duhaime. Signed a lengthier deal with the Washington Capitals. overall, Britt, what are your thoughts on him taking off? Is this kind of mutual? It's like, great, good luck. Is it sad?
Yeah,
Is it happy?
I wasn't super attached to him, and I'm not sure if I just mentally like honed in on a lot of bad choices, a lot of dumb penalties. And it's not just like the anti-Wild bias, because I still am convinced that Parise is going to get from that. But I didn't fall in love with him, and he's just as crass as it sounds, just replaceable.
Yeah.
And when they did that video when Fleury like took his tires off and hid his tires and wheels, was that him, right?
That was, yeah.
Because I think that's what started the bad tone. It was really concerning to see a grown man bitching and moaning that he was going to have to call a mechanic to put his tires back on. Like, bro, not tires, the whole wheel. So like,
not to mention he could afford it no problem.
Yeah,
but if it were just regular schmoes like you and I, would be like, oh, come on.
But like, I just feel like there's something about like hockey guys that they should be able to put their wheels back on so they can go home and not have to call an Uber.
They should. You really should. I'm kind of in the same boat as you, going back to Duhaime. I liked his work ethic in the sense that he really gave it his all. And that's one thing that is going to be missed is he was always there in the scrums, getting dirty, chasing down pucks. But you're kind of right where there was a lot of the mistakes and penalties and things like that, which did at times, pivotal times even, cost the Avalanche. Yeah. So I think
and he just never figured it out. And I think most of that is foot speed. It's a foot speed problem.
Yeah, and like I said, he fared okay when in that little half season he had with us. So this is kind of more of a, I'm glad you found somewhere and best of luck to you type of situation. But the last one, this one is probably going to be the most discussion worthy, is Yakov Trenin. He signs a deal with the Minnesota Wild.
Yeah, that was the worst part of it.
It was a lengthy deal, if I'm not mistaken.
And that's
we were looking at like $5 million too.
And I figured someone would overpay for him, and honestly, it was 4 years, $14 million. So I mean, you can't blame. So 3.5 AAV. You can't blame him for taking that. I do kind of feel like the Avs could have paid that. I mean, I wouldn't. He's 27, and just I think that beyond his like ice, I know that he does bring a lot. He's a Russian, and I did do a bunch of reading about how he is very. He's like the big brother to all the Russians that come in. He really helped assimilate a lot of Russian players, and you can't take away from how important that is. It seems that Russians struggle the most and they need the tightest circles of their own, like the Finnish and the Swedish, they stick together, but they just like, especially the Swedish, they assimilate so much easier. And just seems like Russians, it's just a different style of people. I don't even know. I hope I'm making any sense here, but it sounds like he was a really good bridge for younger Russians. He had taken Kovalenko when he came in, and he took him under his wing, and just a guy that works as hard as he does. I don't know that you ever saw a second of him on the ice where it didn't look like he wasn't giving everything. Yeah. I would have been fine paying him 3.5, but that probably would have been the difference in Drouin or no Drouin. So I don't know.
And I think that's exactly right, which was what I was going to get in. The person I was going to get into next was, I think they had to make that decision to probably let Trenin walk, and I totally agree. They could have, I'm pretty sure, matched that type of deal.
And he can play center or wing, and it seems like we kind of played him not where he was most comfortable much of the time. So
but I tell you, speaking of comfort, though, I was really comfortable watching him on the penalty kill. That's for sure. Oh my gosh, it was amazing.
I know, especially with Cogs leaving, but we also have to remember next year we got our boy Logan O'Connor back. Like, our special teams are gonna be. There was so many. I think that I said it to you guys at the game we were at. Like, can we just decline a penalty because we actually don't want a power play? Like, it's not going very good.
There are a lot of times where shorties and
in fact, just So so hard to remember that these decisions are being made anticipating LOC back next year and very possibly
And Gabe Landeskog,
yeah. I mean, I don't know if he would have any special teams roles upon coming back. It's so hard
just
to know.
that first season, you mean, or
yeah, but they're
Yeah,
making decisions knowing the personnel a lot better. Also, with anticipation as to who they else had intended to sign, that it kind of doesn't make sense to keep Trennan, but god dang, he worked so hard and he was like, I don't know how many people on one team you can call a moose, but like genuinely a moose.
He was. It was amazing. So that one, it does hurt a little bit more to see him leave because I really enjoyed. He was just the guy that if he's up there and doing the screening, if he's in that middleman, which we saw him in multiple occasions be that guy, then that's going to be, if Landeskog comes back and reprises that role, great. Let's hope he does well at it. But this one, I'm like, just a little bit of a bummer.
On cap friendly, and it will not settle in my brain that the Capitals are the worst and cap friendly no longer exists. So I don't know how I'm going to dark out in my free time being unable to go to cap friendly and just like think about who's overpaid. And
I believe Puckpedia is kind of now the go-to that everybody's going to. Yeah.
I don't know how to use friendly, I guess. And okay, so sorry, with Trennan, my biggest thing is that I just really wish you would have gotten out of our division. Like, go away. I don't want to have to play. He's miserable to play against. And he seemed to always know when to take the appropriate penalty. He did some dumb-ish, but you know what I mean? There are sacrificial penalties that are worth it, and he seemed to know very well when to take it.
Yep, I think you're absolutely right. The last one, which I think I might have said the last one last time, that's not true. This is one of the last ones. The Avalanche do, in fact, sign your favorite, Jonathan Drouin, to a 1-year deal. Is it 8 years like we were hoping? No. But at least you get him for one more season. And that's the important part, is you get him back for a let's see how you fare type of ordeal, see how it gels with Landeskog and with the whole Nichushkin situation.
Like, would you assume I imagine that there is a handshake, like spit shake deal.
That's where what I'm wondering.
Like, you know what's going on? Let us get through Landy and Nuke. They literally just have their hands and arms tied, all of their limbs tied behind their back. But Landy and Nuke's money being tied up completely in limbo. I think there's a very mutual understanding, if not pre-written out, ready to just be slap stamped for his next contract, just begging him, please let us get through this and then we will reward you.
Yep.
And man, you got to appreciate a player that will do that, because that's like true hometown shit, and saying his hometown. Like,
and keep in mind, right, that even though it is 1 year, that's still an entire season that you get to see, and he gets to maybe even increase his value, right?
Well, and it's
could be a good thing, could not, but
because it's truly respectable on his end, because if he goes out and plays like shit, then he decreases his value when he could have signed another contract.
That's also true.
So I can appreciate that he is willing to gamble on himself.
Yeah, and I think, and I would honestly bet Drouin at this point in time 10 times out of 10. He showed last season that whatever happened, whatever Nathan MacKinnon fed him or talked to him about before the season began when we signed him on, worked. Right, those chickpeas, whatever it is, worked. So it's good to have him back. Even
value of having mentally sound players, like, doesn't matter who you are. Sorry, I don't know what's going on here. Can I talk about one more person though that
I'm
kind of excited about? So it went pretty quietly. It really hasn't been discussed a whole lot, but I don't know if you've done much. Nick and I've been staying at my parents' house with no phone service almost for the past week and a half.
Oh, there you go.
But the more research that I'm doing, the more So this is basically our next Jonathan Drouin. Our new reclamation project is Eric Brunstrom. I don't know if you've looked a whole lot into him. Brunstrom I didn't realize that he was the Golden Knights entry draft. I believe he was one of their first actual drafted players. He's kind of small. He's 5'10", 85 pounds. He's a defenseman, left-handed. I think he is Swedish, which is
Swedish.
I love Swedes. We signed him. Was it League Min that we got him for?
I believe so. Yeah.
So he was with the Senators. He was essentially expected to be their saving grace. So when Vegas was seeking to acquire Mark Stone, they said everything is on they wanted Mark Stone. Everything is on the table except Brunstrom. Like, we want him. We will not trade him. And Ottawa held out. And then finally, apparently at the request of McCrimmon, the owner of McCrimmon, at the request of the owner of the Knights, the deal got done and they finally put Brunstrom on the table at the last minute, simply because they wanted Mark Stone that bad, which pretty good trade, worked out all right for him. But it's just really interesting that Vegas valued him that much, that even for Mark Stone, and Mark Stone wasn't the savior that he was in Ottawa, that he didn't have but he was still a very valued player. So Ottawa took Brunstrom and they traded Mark Stone away. Mark Stone wasn't bad. Basically expecting Brunstrom to be their savior, like absolute savior. And this is what I've talked to my dad a couple times about this, and I think we've talked about it. And I've been kind of weighing, I like the idea of Line A, but our reclamation projects have to be free agents that are reclamation projects and have been dejected by their teams, but they have to be at the end of their contract. Like with Line A, too much money. We don't do like the taking with retention and blah, blah, blah. But Brunstrom, so we've got him for a year. It's nothing. He could truly be he has the capability to be the most wildly successful reclamation project that we've seen up to this point. I think he's really, if you go watch some highlights of him, he's really exciting and he's young. I'm trying to figure out, playing 266 games, 7 goals, 62 assists, 69 points. He was deemed insufficient for the Senators to extend him a qualifying offer. I believe that when he's done, will he be, if he got a qualifying offer or didn't, I think that would mean he'll probably be a UFA. But the only thing that I don't like about this is if he turns out to be really good, he might make Sam Girard expendable. He may be the younger, shinier Sam Girard. And I hate that, but I don't know. I urge everyone to go do some reading. He's small, but if there was a time to be a small defenseman in the NHL, like Hughes boys tell you, it's right now.
Could be now, definitely.
He seems to be a great person. And who's successful in Ottawa in the last 5 years? What good? I mean, there's only positive for him, and hopefully we can get his numbers where they belong, send him somewhere to be successful, because I do like the idea of just reviving people's careers for the hell of it while they're along the ride
and then sending them away.
Yeah, it's insane to think of these guys who were like once had such bright futures, and it's just like one wrong move, not of their own part, and they ruined what they've worked for their whole entire lives. It's just unfortunate. So I'm just excited. I'll send you more stuff. I forgot to pull it up so I could read it, but I think he's somebody that's being kind of overlooked as someone to be really, really excited about.
Yep. And that plays kind of beautifully into what I was going to go into next, and that was players that we ended up signing, and he was on that list.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were.
No, not a problem. You
sorry,
played,
I didn't realize we were doing that.
You just kind of you just go right with it, and I'm just like, boy, it's just you couldn't plan it any better. And I think the timing of which is just amazing.
Yeah.
So another player that we did sign was 33-year-old defenseman Calvin DeHaan.
That one was weird. You text me it's just like Calvin DeHaan question mark.
It feels a bit strange, however. I feel like this is kind of this is your Jack Johnson replacement. Like just it's almost like a cut and switch. The only difference is it feels like DeHaan's got a little bit less mileage on him, so he can run a little bit longer. So he's going to be your third pairing, something like that.
Probably paired up with Granstrom is where it should shake out.
It potentially could be
feeling that spot. It's kind of good that we've got such depth at the defensive position, because there's going to be some pushing and shoving and legitimate NHL players playing in the AHL.
Yeah. And to be completely honest, it was one that I did not see coming. However, not the more that I thought about it, I was like, it's not too bad, with last season's stats, 3 goals, 7 assists for 10 points for a defenseman.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Well, and I always say it's a plus when you have a guy that you acquire that, like, you definitely know his name and you've heard his name, but like, you're not sure, not in a bad way, and you're not sure when or where. So like, they're not getting overpaid because they're not that important, but they're also not completely irrelevant.
Exactly. And with 59 games played, he could have probably gotten a few more, right? If he played a fuller, healthier season.
It
so
sounds like that's the biggest thing with him, is you can fully anticipate him missing 20 to 30 games
potentially.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing too. So but for not, not a very expensive contract, I think it'll be just fine. Like I said, Jack Johnson replacement, probably it's like a car. You maybe got a new, maybe 3 years older car and a trade.
It's like a game of numbers, like a statistical gamble. One of these dudes is going to work out. One of them's going to be, in the AHL for good, or waived and picked up, or you know what I mean? But we really did do a good job making a nice wide pool and say somebody swim.
Yep. And I think, well, let me get into the next guy, and then we'll kind of talk about the fact that these are all defensemen. So we talked to Erik Brannstrom, we talked Calvin DeHaan, and the other one is Cal Rosen, formerly of St. Louis. Has not had a lot of playing time, but in talks with my brother, who is a Cal Rosen, yep.
He was with us before, wasn't he?
He was for a time, but apparently his time in St. Louis had been kind of eye-opening, I guess was kind of the word. So
I think that he was one of our prospects before. Stop.
He was. So pretty interesting just to see kind of how he transformed. It sounds like St. Louis kind of did him some good from what I was hearing.
They're in such a weird spot right now. I don't know like what they're doing.
Yeah, but either way, he signs with the Avalanche. So that's 3 defensemen right there.
It was definitely
shoring up definitely what feels like your third pair, because your top 4, you're not moving those, right? McCarr, Taves, Manson, Girard, like that stays, right? That gives chances for someone like Sam Malinsky to come in and maybe ruffle some feathers, rattle the cage a little bit, say for like Calvin DeHaan or Erik Brannstrom. It's like, hey,
competition.
I'm coming. Yeah. And I really liked Sam Malinsky's play last season.
I do too.
For as young as he was, and obviously there were mistakes here and there, but those can be ruffled out with time. I liked how he played, right? So I think this gives that friendly enough type of thing where you have the revitalized project, the veteran, and the young gun that wants to come up from the farm teams, right? I think that's a good mixture of trying to get the best man win type situation, and the top 2 kind of get the most playing time, if that makes sense. So other players of note.
Jacob McDonald's back. He is our McDermott replacement. We might see him back and forth because he is someone who can play forward and D, and we love a dude who only takes up 1 roster spot.
Yep.
I loved him. I always have loved him. I feel like the guy's just got shit luck. He took 2 big headshots. Remember, they had to stretcher him off. And then it just sounds like he didn't have a great time with the Sharks.
Uh-huh.
But I'm excited to see him back. He's probably too old at this point, but I think that he'll probably be the captain for the Eagles like he was before. And I'm not sure if Brad Hunt has re-signed yet. So it's good for the Eagles. Good stuff for them. It's good for us. So
100% agree. Additional signings. This one is pretty fun. Joel Kiviranta is coming back
for
another year. He was kind of, and we gave him grades, right? Not very high, mind you. However, for a filler in position with depth, he did all right.
And you know what? He was a playoff boss, man. He did
was pretty well in the playoffs. Yeah.
My one that I was bummed that we didn't talk about, oh my gosh. Who is my tough guy that I loved so much? He signed somewhere else. Who was our super tough AHL guy that just got a brief stint at the beginning of last year? Oh my God, the big, huge guy. Oh,
Riley Tufte.
Yeah, so he signed with the Penguins or something like that. I can't remember. But he's gone. That kind of bummed me out, which not really made for our association, but I just really liked him.
Yeah, I agree. Additional, let's see.
Callum Ritchie, we signed a contract today, I think.
Cal Ritchie, we did. Jason Poland, we also did. Let's see.
And so someone to watch for is we signed Chase Bradley to a 2-year entry-level contract, which is wild to me because he wasn't drafted by us. Chase played with the Musketeers, the team that the MC for when we won the Clark Cup a couple years ago. So this was like totally off the wall because Sampo was kind of my golden boy because I want my Musketeers kids to go and play for the Avs. Like that's always my thing that I joke around and bug them is like, give me some dudes that I can cheer for with all of me because I can't genuinely cheer for them. Like Zeev Buyam and stuff like those are Muskies people too, but I can't give them my whole heart. So to see Chase sign that entry level contract out of nowhere was wild. And apparently he's done great at dev camp. He's a phenomenal skater. He's a super hard worker. He just needs some polishing. He's a little bit older. He's a college graduate, but he's going to have to earn NHL time, but that's really wild for the Avs to just sign an ELC for especially 2 years for someone.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I really hope he makes it because
it should be a pretty exciting little signing. And
he's a good person too. You got to wonder who he knows or who saw him at the very random right time, but super good person. He's a really good person. And then I was really excited too that Poland, we got him a 1-year contract too. So keep him after losing Ben Myers. That really bummed me out, but Bednar just didn't warm up to him at all. I'm not sure why. And I kind of worry about Poland too, because Bednar seems to warm up to Malinsky a little bit more, but Poland seems to be that last one of our college signings. We had the 3 that year, right? And Poland he had a pretty gnarly injury though, so it's hard to break back in, but we'll see.
And you mentioned random. There is one more that I did want to talk about before we moved on, and that was the fact that the Avalanche also snuck in Parker Kelly.
Yeah, it sounds like that's worth being excited for.
And playing in Ottawa with Brandstrom last year, obviously there's going to be that tie-in. I mean, 80 games, I think he played, 8 goals, 10 assists. I mean, 4th line minutes, right? So it's nice to have some kind of shoring, even if minimal, that they can use, right?
And having a 4th line will kill your playoff run just as fast as not having a 1st line. We've learned that.
So ultimately, Parker Kelly could be a fun little, I don't want to say project as well, because he seemed to be pretty defined in a 4th line sense. But maybe just kind of bump him up to be able to be 3rd line or something like that, But overall though, very minimal as far as like big splashes. Obviously you're kind of tied as far as your cap is concerned, which would
it was a lot of fun considering how strapped we were, because at one point I thought we might just do like absolutely nothing, and I was trying to think the other day if we would have an exciting PTO time, because really everything just came to a halt after like the second. It felt like at this point I think that what's his face from Seattle. Oh, what's his name? Is the best free agent left. And he's, oh man, Sprung is considered the best free agent left. And like, yikes. I'm also just waiting for that Parise to come through, but maybe he's just going to be a half year again. I really want him back. It just can't end like that. But I really felt like they did a good job for what they had available.
Yeah, I think you're right. So real quick, we'll answer Allie's question here, and then we'll move on. She asked, did you guys feel panicked seeing all the big fish going to other teams, or were you anticipating a quieter offseason for the Avs? To be completely honest, I wasn't expecting them to make very big splashes. I thought there would have been kind of one larger name for like depth in the center position, but other than that, this is kind of what I was thinking was going to happen. So I'm not overall surprised.
The thing that freaks me out is it really feels like the good teams got better. Like a lot of them, short of Carolina, which I don't know what they're doing, but Tampa, holy shnikes, that was some weird stuff from them. But really, I think the winner is the Preds, and
it has to be.
That sucks that it's them when they're in our division, and they could be the one that knocks us out. So they've certainly gone down. The Brady Shea one. I don't know if it's just accidental that I don't know a whole lot about him, but he got like term, and I think it was like 7 or 8 mil, and people were
got a lot of pay, and it's turned a lot of heads. Maybe not for the best of reasons, but it's turned a lot of heads. And the fact that they got Steven Stamkos on an $8 million deal when Tampa offered him $3?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Pretty impressive.
I've come to the conclusion that was them saying we don't want him back, because
it must have been.
He was going to settle at like the 3x4, and they wouldn't even adjust that. So I wonder if that was almost just like a principle thing for him, where it's like you clearly.
Which, if that's the case, that's a pretty sad way to part ways with your long-term captain.
And I know it's a business, but like I think that this will haunt them. We won't know for 10 years or what. I really think it's going to haunt them.
And it's probably going to be the same exact story with Jonathan Marchessault. I don't think they even talked to him.
So wild. It is a business, but there are things that are sacred. Even in every business, you still have sacred entities that are.
It's an unspoken gentlemanly conduct.
Yeah. It's honestly, if we had more clarity on Landeskog, which it seems to be more that he will be coming back, but God, I was really thinking like, that's a pretty seamless transition to bring in Stammer if we knew that there's a good chance Gabe wasn't coming back. And wouldn't that just be a beautiful way to like wrap up his career as winning a cup with us as the man? I don't know.
Could have been.
I don't know. And that's what I hate Tampa. And now I feel really justified in hating him, like on a moral level. I don't know. I just don't know.
And we'll talk a little bit more about Tampa, I'm feeling, in this next little bit here. But NHL Draft, we'll we'll knock that one out real fast. Actually, no, before we do that, there is this little bit. This is kind of the whole reason the name of the episode exists. Pavel Francouz, let's do that before we do NHL Draft. He's back.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
He decided to come back to the Avalanche as like a goalie scout / development coach. I don't know if it's like permanent or not, but he there he was on the ice in the coaching outfit.
Sounds like it was. I don't remember where I listened to the interview, but essentially he found out at the beginning of last year that he wasn't going to be playing, and he just sort of started that job throughout the season last year and did a lot of scouting through the season. Yeah. And as a team that we'll see with on and in, like for sure, but we've never had a homegrown goalie with true success. So it's really exciting because he's such a genuine person. He seems like a great personality to assess and work with young goalies, because it takes a special human to connect with various goalies. It sounded like Budaj got a position offered elsewhere. Is that?
I believe so. And he was the Eagles goalie coach at the time, right?
Yeah, and I don't know.
So,
It sounds like Francouz is maybe more in the scouting, but
scouting.
Francouz was already out on the ice for dev camp, and
Yeah, he
looks
was
to
out
have,
there coaching with
yeah.
development. So it's like that's pretty cool to see,
When
right?
you
Especially
have
coming
players
after.
from various countries and states that have put in, like Cogliano, the fewest games on our team than almost any team that decide to call Colorado home, you know that something is right. As much as it feels like something is off with the locker room and the shenanigans, they're doing something right because people want to stay, and it's very telling as to how they treat their players.
It's a very addictive society here in Denver, you
Yeah.
know. But then that's a good thing to have, right? With
Yeah.
Cogliano, he didn't play the majority of his career in Colorado, but he's picked a front office job.
Yeah.
Francouz, like you said, homegrown. I mean, there's a lot of reason why the front office is as good as it is. Like,
Especially
you
when
can't
I
beat it.
truly think Francouz could have been a very successful starting goaltender if his health ever
Easily.
could have lined up. So it's not a lack of talent. And he's also one of the most like mentally stable goaltenders I've seen at any level. So hopefully some of those he can like give some of those vibes to Georgiev, because Francouz was shockingly calm at times. Like the whole
Oh yeah.
Francouz what's
Frankie
his
says relax.
exactly.
So hopefully with the development new number 33, a new Patrick Raw for the franchise, because we have not had a franchise
Yeah.
goaltender since, I'm pretty sure, Patrick Raw. But
Yeah.
either way, it's super fun to see him back in the position. Obviously, we know his health was in decline as far as actually playing, but to maybe take some of his knowledge and give it to an up and coming, or find an up and coming that had that same quality, that'd be huge.
That like perfect transition into the draft. He also discussed that they made a conscious decision to start putting more importance in goaltenders. So what did we go do at the draft, Nick? We just drafted all the
We
goalies.
trade away our first round pick.
I was kind of hoping they would do that, and it was just so bizarre. They drafted 3 goalies, right? 3 of them?
I believe so. Yeah.
It's weird to draft goalies like before like the 6th round at all. And I think we took one in the 2nd, didn't we? That guy, they're really high on him. And it sounds like that was in large part due to Francouz's recommendation.
And it sounds like it. Yeah. So that's kind of a perfect transition, Britt. High five on that one, into the draft. So we do last week, or last episode, I should say, I talked about players that potentially I liked them on the draft, whatever. Britt, I don't need to bother asking you because they just decided right on their pick, well, let's trade it to Utah. And Utah, they made pretty good bank off of it, in my honest opinion.
Well, and it was like a 26, number 26. And
24,
honestly, after the first 10, it's so irrelevant that the idea of trading for 2 seconds, or like just trading down for more picks, statistically, I would assume comes out with more wins in the end, especially when you're looking to fill depth and you're not looking for your franchise players.
Yes. And that was kind of the thing where I was like, well, considering where we're at, considering the cap, considering all these things, I think it really was the smarter move. Because we kept complaining about it for years that we don't have a first round pick. But this one, it almost seemed like it made sense to give that away, especially. And what was better is it was to Utah, and Utah made good use out of it. So that was always nice. Yeah. Drafting Baudouin. I'm really excited to see him, by the way. I watched him in the development camp at the Delta Center.
Did you?
He looks like
so jealous.
Him and Tisha Ginla are going to be fun.
Oh, I still think it's just wild that Calgary didn't like sell the farm.
So here's what happened. So in that draft, Calgary did make a phone call to Utah and said, hey, we want to draft Tisha Ginla. We want to move those 2 spots up, or whatever it was. And Utah they were willing to play ball, from what I heard. But they said that their asking price, they sent the asking price saying, hey, we'll take your pick, a couple other picks, and a player, an already developed player. And it sounds like Calgary decided that was too much for him. And so they forewent the deal.
I just think that's dumb. They need something to feel good about. And I'm sorry, but you're in a rebuild, whether you want to be in a rebuild or not. So I just felt like that would have been such a great, like, I don't know.
I'll have to send you the video of my reaction. I was pretty happy. But yeah, overall though, in the draft, so the overall impressions, kind of like with what you said. So you feel, Brit, like after the first 10, maybe 12 picks, it kind of just was like almost a crapshoot from there. What was probably the biggest news or biggest thing in the draft for you that really caught your attention?
I don't know. I just was really pouting a lot that I couldn't be there because I really, really wanted to go.
That's true. I heard it. I mean, it was a really cool venue.
I mean, it was essentially everything that we anticipated. I don't know that anything was super surprising for me. The big one that I love the video so much of it is where they announced that they're trading Sergachev, blah, blah, blah. And everybody's like,
I saw that video. I would have been one of them too.
Which, dude, I swear to God, if I was Sergachev, it would be my life's goal to just poop on the city of Tampa every time. Oh, what are they just signed him to a 7 years?
Something around that,
yeah. A team-friendly deal in a no-tax state to be traded out of said no-tax state.
Yep.
Oh, gross. Tampa is just, it doesn't feel like Vegas, though. Tampa feels like they're just trying to be ruthless, but they're just kind of being dumb. Nope. I think I'm frozen.
Announced the trade between the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Utah Hockey Club, that Mikhail Sergachev goes to Utah, and the other big one being John Marino getting traded from the Devils, going to Utah as well. And all of a sudden, Utah now has an instant decor.
Yeah, that's what
it was pretty impressive. Like, Utah decided to join the league and say, we're not screwing around. Like, it was pretty cool.
Sketchy things are, it's kind of concerning that we're going to be fighting for a wild card spot with the Preds in Utah. Like, Utah is, you can tell that the owners, like, we're done. Like, we are done.
He has given Bill Armstrong full control of the team with zero restraint. And honestly, Bill said, even when that trade happened, he said, hey, let's go and shock the world. And shock the world he did.
I like it because they need to, starting on the midst of a rebuild, like, what a way to get going with just immediate excitedness. Like, they're not going to be expected to go win the cup, but everything
compete for a playoff spot
to a successful team.
Yep. A lot of people, and they were talking about of grasping a playoff spot. And with the Avalanche, I think obviously they're still, in my opinion, the Avalanche are going to be your fighter for first place. It's going to be between in this season.
Man. What are they
doing? This season, though, I still think, based off the fact that you have Kovalenko, Landeskog's coming back, and he might eat up the points that Nichushkin could have had, depending on how well he does, right?
Obviously, yeah.
You have Sam Malinsky, you have all these shape, right? So I still feel like it's going to be them, Dallas, and now Nashville all vying for that top spot. And I think it's going to be kind of a copy paste of.
Yeah, people are kind of questioning Dallas. Losing Tanev just feels weird for them. But Dallas really, I don't know. Dallas might take a little backpedaling.
It could. They could.
To see Utah take over that spot.
As would I. As would I.
I'm gonna grab a hoodie. I'm gonna keep my sound on really quick. I'm just freezing. I don't know. Like.
Oh no, you're good. Go right ahead.
I'm still here.
So that being said, winners and losers of that draft, obviously winners being the San Jose Sharks, drafting Macklin Celebrini, signing Toffoli, signing Wenberg. They, it's not a massive step up, but it is a big step up because it's just based off of what I saw from the highlights and the development camp, even stuff like that. Sounds like Macklin Celebrini's already got 3 feet through the door. Like it's pretty impressive how he's done. Other winners around the draft, Utah, obviously, like we said, with the trades that they did for Marino and Sergachev, the signing of Ian Cole, obviously that's not draft related, but then they get Tija Ginla, they get Cole Baudouin.
Yeah, it is so exciting that
super excited. Yep,
he's leaving Boston.
Other winner that I thought was Columbus, drafting oh my gosh, Kalen Lidstrom. I think he's going to be a very important player. I do think Calgary alone, with their draft pick, I think it's probably going to serve them just as well as it would have with if they were to have gotten Tija Ginla. So but overall, I think draft was what it was. I would love to see them go back to the Sphere. I think that made a pretty big case for don't do that home thing.
Possibly going back on that, like that they may end up, which it sounds like the Sphere was very expensive and they hemorrhaged money, but it sounds like it was worth it.
It does, and I'm hoping that becomes the kind of reignite the talking point of, well, maybe we don't just do a home base centered draft.
I like it where all the NHL has that is different that they do well. All of the rest of the leagues are off site, and the NHL draft is so distinct and special, and it's the only thing that they have that's good. Like they're off like so many things, but not that.
Yep, I would agree. So overall, I think the draft went by just as good as you could expect it to. Well done, and congrats to Macklin Celebrini. I'm probably going to pre-order your jersey.
I'm so excited that he signed, because that just means that, and I don't, you don't want to win the easy way, but that makes DU's route to another championship just a smidge easy if there's a sudden, like, everyone jumping off of going back to Boston because
there you go,
the Golden Boy is gone. So I don't know. It is interesting, and also
youngest ever player to win the Hobey Baker, right?
It sounds like he could very well, like, quickly be better than what we even anticipated out of Bedard. I mean, Celebrini is generational beyond even Bedard. So we have some insanely badass hockey coming upon us in the next 5 to 10 years. Fun. Yeah, I'm really excited.
So with Utah, their home opener is against Chicago. So we get to see Bedard first game in his second year, so that'll be super fun to. Oh my God! And those tickets are selling for like $300 on the cheap end. Like it's like yikes.
And so, how quickly do they anticipate being able to have seat? Because they can currently do what, 10?
They can currently do 12 unobstructed, and then they can get a full almost 18, 17 something. But some of those are obstructed. But then they did roll out a plan that over the next 3 years, that thing will be widened, stretched, pulled, whatever. So in the next 3 years, then it'll be.
And then other positive news, the Alex Morello completely and entirely signed over all of his rights to the Phoenix Coyotes. So the next billionaire that comes along that isn't hated by the entire state of Arizona.
Brett, I have an idea.
Reinstate.
Let's buy a franchise.
Yeah, like $17 that I can throw at you about.
I can do a nice new printer and a box of donuts.
Lots of love. But I was just worried about that for the whole franchise. Honestly, in my opinion, one of the coolest like entities, themes, like the logos, their designs, all of it was so awesome. And it could have been stuck in limbo if he had decided to drag it out for the very last minute. Now, all we need him to do is sell the Roadrunners to the owner, to the Smiths, so that he doesn't also ruin them, because that is a phenomenal franchise. The Roadrunners are a very successful team. Like, we went and enjoyed them a lot. So he needs to just sell them a billion. It's a big couch.
Allie, we need to have a talk.
But the problem is, does every political person within the state of Arizona absolutely despise you and is willing to put tons of effort into like blocking everything you try to do. Like
Yep.
if you went through, I like read some of the like actual dialogue from like the mayor and the town hall meetings and stuff. They hate that man on a personal level. He is absolutely despised, and they made it personal to ensure that no matter how right or amazing or wonderful he came up with a plan, it was just him. He was the problem.
It was never going to happen all along. It sounded like crazy.
But that's really exciting because Arizona does need a team, and I'm just so glad that the Coyotes franchise isn't being held hostage.
Yeah,
because it could have.
It definitely could have. So, I think with that being said, though, Brett, I think that kind of takes us right to the end of the episode. Obviously, a lot that we could still keep talking about, but I know obviously a lot of you guys, especially on the East Coast, probably want to go to bed. So,
well, I was going to ask. So during the draft, I just forgot to mention this till now. I just kept reading on every single like announcement, no matter what team it was. Rangers fans are in there like, what is Drury doing? Every single Rangers fan was bitching on every single team.
Yeah. Allie has thoughts on that.
So I'm curious what Allie and your guys' thoughts are on Trouba and how when Pasha came out and talked some shit about Trouba, well-deserved, he got absolutely obliterated by Rangers fans because talking about family was off limits. Because he made some passing comment about how his wife is a doctor and he's out there delivering concussions. And now that Trouba was apparently approached with discussion to waive his no move clause and made the decision to do his rightful thing under his contract and denied a trade or to waive his no movement clause because his wife is a doctor who is like finishing something with like super important. And it's like, I've hated that man so much, but like to see him put himself like on a noose to protect his wife's career is, I don't know. It seems like that's the most respectable thing I've ever seen him do. And now Rangers fans are up in arms. Now the family's not so sacred because his wife should probably fuck off and remember that her husband's an NHL player and you don't need to go to college. I don't know. It's just a weird thing.
Yeah, it's kind of pandemonium in the Trouba camp and Rangers camp right now.
I was really shocked at how fast they turned on him. I thought they knew they were paying him for vibes and not for on ice.
Here's the only thing I can say about it. Like I said, I don't have any skin in the game. I don't have any real knowledge as far as the Trouba thing. However, the one concern that I do have with that is that he's your captain.
Yeah. And now
that to me just sounds like it was a mistake from the very beginning. And I hate to say it, he does display a lot of captain like qualities.
Well, and it sounds like there's no issues in the locker room. He doesn't have
and that's exactly right. I don't
but
and
now
I think
for him to come back
but the external
have a lot of regret because for them to have asked him to waive the no trade clause, which was like a 16-team no trade clause, you would assume that they had an offer on the table that could come to fruition should he waive it. But it sounds like they didn't even have an offer. Yeah, so it was so dumb that they like ruined that relationship. I don't know. Drury's being a weirdo, man.
Yeah, and Allie has opinions on Drury, so maybe. Just text her. She'll write a novel for you.
I should. Because when he waived what's his face, knowing that the Sharks, I thought that was some shady shit. Like I think it technically was all right, but it felt really gross to me.
Yeah. She's now staring at me. She has thoughts.
He doesn't bring the vibes. I thought he was all vibes.
Did you
guys see that video of Rempe practicing fighting with Larocque on the ice? It was
cool. Wasn't that cool?
Oh, you got to imagine other guys watching that being like, shit. Because he was already good enough. He's out there punching, what are those boxing things called? With Larocque over and over practicing on the ice, in space, both of them. It's pretty interesting.
So Allie tells me that it is a modified no trade clause regarding Trouba, 16 teams, so half the league.
So that's why it's even more embarrassing, though, if they didn't already have a trade set up and they asked him.
I can't help but wonder if some of those teams that were willing to play ball, he moved his no trade clause to those teams to block any particular avenue. Maybe I don't know. I don't know.
It's set in stone when or every year you sign it or something like that. But Man, that's a spot for him to be in now. How do you go back to that locker room knowing that they
It's
want to get
tough. Well, it's kind of it's
mad
similar.
respecting your wife like that and not just bouncing and expecting her to drop what she's doing or to do it
Yeah.
alone because they have a newborn, don't they?
As from a marital and husband, 100% respectable.
It's really easy to forget that they do actually have families who
They
do
have families.
also.
Yep.
And their families also have dreams and careers and emotions.
Yeah, that's crazy. But yeah, Allie has she can, just like I said, text her. She'll rattle you off, man. She'll rattle off a novel to you. But anyway, I think we'll sign off on that though. But thank you. No, not a problem.
Too much stuff.
Not a problem. Well, there's hey, we got all next week that we can talk about stuff. So
yeah, it's gonna be dry from here probably. I guess this is where we get the
potentially. It's gonna be pretty rainy though. My wife and I are headed to Iceland in 2 weeks, so we're
that's exciting.
Yeah, we're excited for that. So no episode that week. Just disclaimer for everybody watching. So thank you once again, everyone, for joining us on this episode of the Cluster Puck Podcast. We do enjoy your guys' participation and viewership. Thank you very much for that. If you like what you saw, don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow the MHRT Network so you can get notified when Cluster Puck Podcast go live. You can follow them on the various social media platforms of your choosing. If you do want to follow us, you can follow us at the Cluster Puck Podcast on Facebook and at Cluster Puck Avs on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. With that being said, let us know your thoughts on free agency, your thoughts on the draft. Are there any shock trades coming down the way?
Let's just acknowledge Sidney Crosby hasn't signed his extension.
He hasn't, but Brit, it may be time to put that to bed.
No.
It might be.
Even after he signed the contract, he's still not.
I think I'm going to get some friends and we're all going to write you letters.
No.
And have a little intervention.
Nope.
And if it does end up happening that Crosby signs with the Avalanche, you get to wave the finger in our face and say, I told you so.
I'm going to make this my next lucrative business plan is to make bets.
There you go. There you go.
Sorry, I had to.
Hey, you gotta appreciate the effort. But anyway, with that being said, we hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. We'll see how the offseason continues to treat us. And now we just get to count the days until
cottage time.
The season finally begins. So with that being said, everyone have a safe night, a great weekend, and as always, go Avs go.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Tempo's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flame out. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle.